Um, Hello, today is Monday, July 7th, and welcome to episode 473 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm NSI Senior Fellow Morgan Vina, and I'm joined today by Advisory Board Member Lester Munson and Fellow Jessica Jones. So, the deadline for the U.S. tariff pause is coming up on Wednesday. Yesterday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent made a big splash saying that tariff letters will be sent to about 100 countries over the next several days. This, as the Trump administration's 90-day tariff pause comes to an end on Wednesday. President Trump added that letters will continue to go out on Tuesday and Wednesday, saying that, quote, "We'll have most countries done by July 9th, either a letter or a deal. For those that don't move things along, then on August 1st, you will boomerang back to your April 2nd tariff level." Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick then told reporters yesterday that the president is leading the negotiation of many of these deals, reiterating that the tariff rates would go into effect on August 1st. So far, Trump has only announced deals with 3 countries: the United Kingdom, which maintained a 10% tariff rate; China, which temporarily paused sky-high duties on most goods from 145% to 30%, and a minimum 20% tariff on goods from Vietnam. When asked if the administration was setting yet another deadline for tariffs to go in effect, Bessent pushed back and described that the administration is applying maximum pressure. Where have we heard that one before? So, Jessica, is August 1st a new deadline, and what are the odds that it's going to shift again?
I didn't think I'd have to follow my calendar so much in these summer months. I thought this is the lull, right, where we got to take it easy, but I feel like we're hearing a lot of numbers. Like the weekend kind of exploded, and I think we'd kind of forgotten about the tariff pause, and all of a sudden you see the three amigos on the interview circuit describing the new deadlines, because it is a new deadline. It's interesting. The 90-day pause is up this week, but tariffs don't go up until August 1st. And these 100 letters may or may not contain tariff rates in them. President Trump said that these letters would actually contain the tariffs, the numbers that the countries would hit with. I mean, it's a little hard to know what's going on. We were kind of promised, 90 deals in 90 days at the beginning of the 90 days. And as you mentioned, Morgan, we only have seen a handful. And of those, the UK and China, they look more like frameworks. I think, folks that work on trade deals know how intricate and how lengthy the process is. And the idea that these all 100 countries and 100 trade deals could be hammered out within a few days seems a bit ambitious. And, at the end of the day, the world economy is also interested, obviously, in what's going on along with global leaders. And in addition to American consumers, this hits, critical industry. This hits critical infrastructure. It hits costs for the DoD. It hits, we're in the middle of the summer. It's hot here in DC. We think about electrical grids and data centers. Those, components of that come from abroad. Those costs are all going to go up. We had a BRIC summit over the weekend where we saw countries kind of softly saying, putting out statements about the U.S., about the tariffs, and that they were unilateral and violating WTO rules. And you see kind of Beijing looking, kind of coming out and for once being seen as kind of more favorably than the U.S. when we think about world trade, which is crazy. President Trump came out against the BRIC countries, actually made a statement that anyone that aligns with them will also be hit with an additional levy on top of, I guess, the tariffs they're also getting. And so there seems to be a lot of noise, but continuing pushback of whatever the deadline implementation date is. So I think it's really hard to know whether we're going to see any deals of any substance. In fact, actually, I think the trade deficit went up in the last quarter because we're exporting less, even though the dollar is weaker, which usually doesn't happen. And so it's hard to know what the Trump administration is planning concretely and whether we're seeing a new dip. I know, we joke, buy the dip, you guys, if you need any economic advice from Fault Lines, whether we're going to see another one and how, the American economy and the global economy responds. DBD.
Yep. So, Les, what does this mean for U.S. businesses and the U.S. taxpayer? I mean, I'm going to Costco, and the price of my bananas and apples, I'm telling you, is going up. So, what am I going to have to go to Aldi now? What's the deal?
I like Aldi. It's kind of a do-it-yourself shopping experience. You got to take it out of the box. By the way, the bananas are still cheap. The apples are not. It's like $2 or $3 for a decent apple.
bananas have gone up.
But it's still it's minuscule compared to apples, folks.
Yeah, that's true.
Go with the bananas. The bananas I think are actually better for you than the apples, and they're certainly cheaper. And if you're buying for a whole family,
This is Les's foreign policy. Just buy the bananas.
just buy the bananas. Yes, send a message to Walmart and Costco and Aldi. Buy the bananas. I have been wondering what the storyline would be after the One Big Beautiful Bill passed, because that was the narrative and the effort for months, really the first 6 months of the administration. And now they're kind of going back to a sequel. They're going back to the franchise, the big moneymaker, the Tariff story, going back for a sequel. Is this going to be Godfather 2, or is it going to be like Star Wars Episode 1? I don't know. I think there's some problems here with the story. Can you do 90 deals in 90 days? Probably not. What is a deal? By the way, let's talk about performative international agreements just for a second, shall we? You can go back 30 years to the Clinton administration. That's when this nonsense started. They went out and signed the Kyoto Protocol, which was a fake climate agreement that didn't really change our behavior, was entirely performative. You go to the Obama administration and the Iran nuclear deal, which wasn't a deal. It wasn't even an agreement. No one signed anything. It was a joint plan of action. What is that? Look that up, people. So this is kind of the Trump version of a long series in American foreign policy and international relations of a bunch of deals that don't track with the Constitution, don't necessarily track with the law per se, and are kind of performative. Can the administration get something useful out of it? I mean, I got to say, I'm pretty skeptical, because I think these deals, when they announce them, look a lot like the way things were originally. There's a couple of tweaks around the edges. I think about the first Trump administration and the new version of NAFTA, which is now called USMCA. It's substantially the same agreement. So I'm not sure how much this leverage usage is real and how much of it is just performative. I think based on just my amateur read of the stock market futures right now, most people aren't too worried about this, and they kind of see this is kind of the normal course of business for this administration, and are not too, there's not going to be much of a dip to buy, to your point, Jones. So where does all that leave us? I think it's going to be a disappointing summer movie season for this administration. I think they're going to have to come up with, something else to really kind of bring the crowds into the theater. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I'll just note that Halloween costumes start going on sale in Target and Walmart in August. So this year, my daughter may just have to wear a paper bag.
Be a banana. Be a big banana.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, you know what? The clock is ticking, and we'll be sure to be tracking all of those agreements, frameworks, here on Fault Lines. So with that is a wrap. Thank you as always to Taylor Lane, Kelly Crowley, Natalie Varma, Claude Jennings, and the NSI staff for their help in producing today's episode. Join us on Wednesday, July 9th for another episode of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you smart fast on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. Fault Lines is now on the YouTube, so check out our channel for a video of today's episode. If you like what you heard or saw, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.